Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. I'm so excited because today I'm going to be sharing all of the curriculum that I used this year for my 8th grader. This is going to be like my review, my thoughts on the curriculum that we used for him this year because it is nearing the end of the year. It's April and he will be going into 9th grade next year, so soon I will be sharing my 9th grade picks, but this is just my I think this video is even more helpful than just what I'm choosing to use for next year because this is my review on all of the things that we used for this year. So I will tell you everything we used and what we thought about it, what I thought about it, and what he thought about it because he is 14 and in 8th grade. So, he's a getting there, developed human and has his own opinions on things as well. So I'm excited to share this with you guys. I'm such a nerd when it comes to homeschool stuff, homeschool curriculum. I just find it so fun, so interesting. I love homeschooling my kids. I absolutely love it. So I will say though, first off, before I get into that whole thing, first of all, if you are new here, hello, my name is Madison. I have 4 kids, ages 14, 6, 3, and 1. And my 14-year-old is in 8th grade right now. My 6-year-old is in kindergarten, which I actually have a kindergarten year review video already up on my channel, so definitely check that out to see all of the stuff we used for him this year, all the curriculum and everything. And then my 3-year-old, he does some preschool-ish stuff. Actually, I have some videos coming up on that, but mostly he just plays. He's very creative. And then my 1-year-old, she's just crazy and just tries to wreak havoc on our lives. And she's cute and lovable and beautiful and wonderful. So anyway, that's a little bit about me, and I am married. And we got a golden retriever puppy recently, which has been interesting, fun and interesting. So yeah. That's a little bit about me if you are new here. But, and if you are new, please be sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when I post new videos. I'm trying to post at least once a week. Recently, it's been like twice a week on this channel. So I am very excited. I love talking homeschool. I'm just a total homeschool nerd. So now about my son, Carter. If you are new here, you're just clicking on this video for the first time, you probably don't know, but he had a bowel obstruction this year. So he was in the hospital for a total of 2.5 months. He had an ostomy bag for 3 months. He had a total of 6 surgeries. One of them lasted for 13 hours. He was in the ICU. I have whole videos on this. I talk a little bit about it in my Why I Homeschool and our homeschool story video, so I will link that below. That's on this channel. I also have a whole video of what happened to him up on my cleaning channel, so I will link that video as well if you're interested in that, because I don't want to go too into that in this video. But basically, he was going to public school. I had put him in public school, which, like I said, go to Why I Homeschool, our homeschool story video, our journey, because you will see why he went to public school this year and why it was a mistake and all of that. So I talk about that in that video. But he was at public school for his 8th grade year, and it was October 7th that he woke me up and said his stomach was hurting extremely badly, and that's when everything started. So he went to public school from the end of August to October 7th, and then after that, done. And now we are never going back. We're never turning back. After everything he went through, he wants to be homeschooled, and I am more convicted than ever about homeschooling. So, but I tell you that because that matters for what curriculum we used this year. So, if you are someone who, is not happy. I was already not happy with sending him back to public school. But if you feel like you're unhappy with your kid being in public school, but you think, I can't pull him out in the middle of the year, or for him it had been just a few months, I can't pull him out after a few months of schooling, I think you totally can, honestly. And if you feel convicted and dedicated to homeschooling, I think you 100% should pull your kid out. That's what I think you should do. Now, that's just my opinion, saying I don't know all your circumstances if that's the case, but I think you can, because we did. It was a few months, that he had been in public school, And then he was in the hospital for 2 months, so we came back on Thanksgiving Day. We came home, and we started doing some schoolwork. That's when he had the ostomy bag, and it was very stressful. But for those few months, we did do some schoolwork, and I'll tell you guys what we used. And then he went back to the hospital for a few more surgeries to remove the ostomy bag. And we were there for 2.5 weeks, so of course he wasn't doing school then. And we got home and, you know, he did some school here and there. So he's had a very tumultuous year. But the beautiful thing of homeschooling is that he was still able to learn. You know, I can't imagine throwing him back into public school for the 3 months while he had the ostomy bag. It just wouldn't have worked. But then also, it just wouldn't have worked with the ostomy bag, like it wouldn't have been possible. But also, even if it was possible to throw him back into school, then take him back out for a couple weeks, when he would just miss like a day or two of school from being sick, it was like so stressful getting him caught up. So I can't imagine trying to just throw him back into that. So I'm very grateful for homeschooling. So that's just like a long, me attempting to make it a short, but basically a long backstory of him. So let's get into what we used. So he had been in public school. He's in the hospital. We were in the hospital for 2 months. So there was, after all his surgeries and everything, we were dealing with the ostomy bag. We were having to change it multiple times a day. He was on a lot of pain meds. There wasn't a whole bunch of school work that we could do. But we did try, and I will share what we used. It was just something simple that we did in the hospital, and I will share what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it. So, while we were in the hospital, which I cannot find the actual notebook because he's done with this, but we used one of the book studies from The Good and the Beautiful. The Good and the Beautiful, if you're not familiar with them, I think it's 8th grade, that they don't have like a full-on curriculum for 8th grade. You just start doing book studies and you can go into high school doing their book studies. They have multiple book studies that you can do in a year. So this was one of their, I think, 8th grade book studies was on this book, Abraham Lincoln. And I'm pretty sure either they republished this or they wrote it themselves. Oh no, okay, so the author is Wilbur F. Gordy. So, first published in 1917, but then The Good and the Beautiful will kind of like republish a book. So they republished it in 2018 by Jenny Phillips. So, that's just a little backstory on the book. It's not, I would say, like a typical book. Like Sonlight, for example, you use literature that is out there in the world. I'm looking down because I have all my Sonlight stuff because I'm going to be sharing that in another video. And a little bit in this video because he did use it in this year. But they use actual books, if that makes sense. It's not a book that was once published in 1917 and then they republished it, you know what I mean? They're just like actual classic literature and everything. Whereas The Good and the Beautiful, which is a very cool and interesting idea, republishes books or writes their own books or whatever. And some of that I love, like for my kindergartner. I love that. And I love The Good and the Beautiful. I think they're an amazing company. They do amazing work. But obviously nothing is perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. I'm not perfect. And so I don't like criticizing, but I want to share my honest opinions on things. So this is not me saying that I hate the entire company, just from a constructive criticism, I guess, is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to say this is just constructive criticism from me. You know, just my opinion, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that would disagree with me. But overall, I love The Good and the Beautiful. But there are some things I don't like, and this is one of them. But let's talk about the good first, okay? So he did this. It's just this book, and then it comes with like a little notebook that's about this size. I think it's spiral bound. I wish I could find it, but and you just read the book, and then you do like vocabulary and grammar. Oh, there's a grammar book. Do I have that in here? Yes, okay, good. There is a grammar and writing guide that you reference, which I thought this was good. I liked this grammar and writing guide. I felt like it was helpful. It has sentence diagramming. It has just like different grammar stuff. So this I liked, but okay, I'm not going to get into what I didn't like. So you have that as well. What I loved about this was we could pick it up in the middle of the year and start working on it in a hospital bed. Like, he was in a chair sometimes, but sometimes he was in the hospital bed. In the hospital, after multiple surgeries, doing this. He was able to do it quite easily. Just pick it up and go. It wasn't like a whole entire year's worth curriculum, you know what I mean? It was just a book study, which made it really simple. So I loved that about this. I loved that we could just pick it up and it was like a full-on, you know, curriculum in a sense that you are reading and writing. He would have things that he would write. He would have grammar. He would have spelling. You know, he would have all of that in this. So I love that. So if you need something that's just simple, easy, and go to the point, and of course Abraham Lincoln is a very inspiring person to learn about, and I liked that they would have him write in a notebook like what inspires you about Abraham Lincoln, or what are some good qualities that Abraham Lincoln had. So like kind of character study in a way. So I liked that as well. So there are a lot of things to like about this, but we will not be doing another one of these book studies. So my review on this is, unfortunately, I didn't like it enough to keep going, to do another one. Like, he finished this, he did some of it in the hospital, and then he came home and worked on this. And he was able, it was so simple and easy that he was able to work on it with an ostomy bag that would be leaking and having issues with that. So if your child is having health issues, or just, you know, there's something going on in your family, whatever it is, I think that this could be a really good curriculum for you, just for the time being or whatever. But my criticism of it is that the book was boring. Like, my child is not 6 years old anymore. You know, he's 14. He sees the world from, you know, more of a grown-up lens. He's not a grown-up, he's a teenager, he's still a child, he's still very young, but he sees the world differently than a 6-year-old would. And I feel like, I hate to say this, but I feel like this book is just kind of like watered down. Like, Sonlight is using literature that is like, has won awards, you know, like literally won awards, and there's a reason for that. And it's not watered down. And now it's not repulsive. It's not putting things in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's good literature. And I like The Good and the Beautiful's idea of republishing things, but I think the fact that it was originally written in 1917 and it didn't stand the test of time. You know, like, there are certain books that were written forever ago and stood the test of time and are still being published today and still read today in English classes or whatever. There's a reason for that. You know what I mean? This was not. As far as I understand, if I'm understanding this correctly, it was just republished by them. So I think there's a reason for that, you know, and for some kids, it may not bother them. They may find this really interesting and it might not bother them. And my son did it, you know. It wasn't like it was so bad that he was like, I can't even bear doing this, you know. I mean, he's, you know, I'm his mother and I said, this is what we're doing, and so he did it. But I asked his opinion, and he's been doing Sonlight after he did this. And I was like, give me your review on this. He was like, it's just boring. Like, the books I'm reading now through Sonlight are just so much more interesting. Now, I'm not saying that the entire The Good, because it's from The Good and the Beautiful library, I'm not saying that the entire The Good and the Beautiful library is boring. Honestly, like, their readers, the Jungle one, I shared that in my last video, my unboxing video of The Good and the Beautiful, so I really do like them. I love those. So it's not all of them, but for this one in particular, I found pretty boring. Like, my son found it boring, and I found it boring. So that's just unfortunate that that didn't work out for us. And my long-winded explanation of this, of why I think that's the case, is because this book did not stand the test of time. They republished it themselves or whatever. You know, it's not like a classic literature that's around and being published today. And I think that there's just a reason for that. So I would have preferred if they had done a book study. I love the idea of these book studies. It's kind of like a unit study or whatever. I love the idea of that. But I would prefer if they would choose a book study on, I'm trying to like find one of these books, but on just like a classic book. You know what I mean? One that will catch the child's attention and impact them in a real, genuine way. Not a just watered down way. Does that make sense? That sounds so harsh, but I love The Good and the Beautiful. So please don't take my one negative review of something they've done as that. I think they're amazing for the younger years, like especially elementary and then even into like 6th and 7th grade. I think they are amazing, amazing, amazing for that. And especially if you're just starting homeschooling, I would say like do The Good and the Beautiful. Like if you are a new homeschooler, 100% I would say that. But for the older years, and particularly this book study, we didn't like it. So that was a long explanation, but hopefully I'm going to stop now. Hopefully you guys understand my heart in that I'm not trying to be like rude or hurtful or say I don't like the company, because I do. I like them a lot. It was just this that I didn't like. And I want to be real and raw and honest with you guys in my videos. I don't want to be afraid of hurting someone's feelings, like a company's feelings. Not that they care, you know, or that they're watching this video, but you know what I mean. I don't want to be afraid of hurting feelings, and so I don't share how I really feel about curriculum. That's not why you're watching this video. You want to hear my honest opinions. At least that's what I want when I watch someone's video. I don't want them to be like, you know, it just wasn't for me, and then like move on. No, I want to know why. You know, I want to know why. So, okay, so that was that. We did that. And then, once he finished that, and since I decided that it just wasn't working for us, I moved him to Sonlight, and I've loved it. He's loved it. I've loved it. It's been amazing. Now, we did not start Sonlight. I'm going to grab some of the books. Actually, after this, I'm going to film like a whole video of all the books in his Sonlight curriculum, what we've thought of the ones we've read so far. It's like a little mini review, but not a total review because we're not done with it yet. And then once we do complete the whole curriculum, then I will do a total review on it. But this is just like a little sneak peek of what we think of it. So, these are some of the books that he's reading right now. I think I'm missing one. And then we are doing a read aloud right now. So the read aloud that we are doing right now is the Watsons Go to Birmingham. So, you know, it is April. The school year is nearing an end. Of course, with homeschool, you know, some people school year round. Like, it's just a different type of thing. So, I have been trying to decide what I want to do because we are busy in the summer. Like, I'd say at least June and July, we really need to take off. I don't know. I'm not totally decided how much time we're going to take off. Like, maybe we'll go into like the first week of June or the second week of June or something like that and then take off. But I know we want to at least take like all of July off. Like, we have camps and vacations, mini vacations, things that we want to be doing. So I do want to take like a typical summer somewhat. And I'll talk about that in another video. I want to talk about like my summer plans because I always find that really interesting from other homeschool moms. Like, what are you doing for summer? Are you even taking a summer break? You know, things like that. So I will talk about that in a future video. But I was like thinking, we started this when we got back from the hospital, a couple weeks after we got back from the hospital. So I would say like end of February-ish, beginning of March. So we really haven't been doing this for very long. Probably beginning of March because he needed time to recover when he got back from the hospital. So we've only been doing this for like a month and a half, something like that. Maybe about 5-6 weeks. So I was thinking, should we just stop and then start back up at the beginning of in his 9th grade year, because I think this is totally appropriate for a 9th grader as well. Or do we just keep going? And I'm leaning towards just keep going, but that's kind of like a side note. So, but I'm saying that to say we've only done about 5-6 weeks of this, but we love it. I feel like that's enough time to know whether you're going to love something or not. We absolutely love it. So right now, this is the second read aloud. We're almost done with this that we have done. The first one was Holes, which Holes is just a classic. Like, I love Holes. I've read this book so many times. I read this book myself in middle school for the first time in a classroom setting. I think the teacher just kind of like read it to us. Absolutely loved it then. I think the movie came out when I was a kid, like Shia LaBeouf was really popular back then, and so I think the movie came out also around that time, which I think the movie is really good too. So I read it then, and then I actually read Carter this book when he was like 4th or 5th grade, something like that. So we had already read this together, but that was a long time ago. He was pretty young, you know, now being in 8th grade, he had forgotten a lot of what happened in the book. So I was totally fine with reading this again because it is such a good book. It is a classic in my opinion, and maybe in others' opinions. It's a winner of the Newbery Medal and the National Book Award. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is a good book. This, no. I'm sorry, no. So anyway, we loved Holes. Thought it was really good and really appropriate. There's a lot of, I mean, Carter's also a 14-year-old boy. They're around that age in this book. And it's a bunch of boys. And just like the life stuff that this type of book brings out that you can talk about. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not watered down. Like, these are real boys. They're real humans that make real mistakes. But there's like a moral of the story and a lesson and an understanding of people's imperfections. And it's just, there's so many layers to a real, genuine book like this. So we loved this. And then this book, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, is also a Newbery Honor book. And I had never heard of this. I'd never read it before, but I love it. I would say when we first started, like the first couple chapters, I was like, I don't know. I mean, Holes is like one of my favorite books of all time. I love middle grade novels. Like, so this is like a perfect time for me as his mom to be reading to him and everything. I love it. Like, we've read so many, like, because of Winn-Dixie, our dog is named Winn-Dixie after that book that I read to Carter a few years ago. I love middle grade novels. So anyway, kind of a nerd when it comes to that. Or I'm just a nerd in general, I guess. But this is very good. We're not quite done yet, but it's about a family and, you know, the dynamics of a family, which I love. But I've tried to read adult books about families because I'm very passionate about my family. Obviously, I homeschool my kids. Like, I love family. It's just a big deal to me. We have 4 kids, you know. I've tried to read adult family books and it's just depressing, honestly. Like, there's just a bunch of like depravity and just like sadness and just addiction or whatever, just like sad things. But since this is, I think, pretty sure a middle grade novel, it has real stuff in it, which is probably why I like middle grade novels. It has real stuff in it, but it doesn't go too far and too depressing. But there's like real sad stuff that goes on. But it has light at the end of the tunnel, and it's just so true. And there are some parts that we just laugh out loud at in this book. And I really enjoyed it. And I would say too, Holes, my 6-year-old would sometimes listen in when I was reading it. And I would say that he kind of understood it or like was kind of interested. This book, I think, goes over my 6-year-old's head more. I think that, and there are certain times where I was like, I don't want to read that around the 6-year-old. So this one is a little bit, I would say, more for 8th grade, 9th grade, but such a good book. So both read alouds so far have been amazing, and we've loved them. And I love, like, I definitely recommend reading aloud the books to your kids. If you can find the time to do that, even if they're in 8th, 9th grade, like, you might think, oh, they're so old now, like, you know, of course they can read perfectly well. Like, I don't need to read to them. But no, there's this intimacy, and it's just so much fun. Like, because when you read out loud, you are enjoying the book together. It's no longer just like a solitary act of reading a book. You're doing it together. And of course you could get the audiobooks as well if you wanted to. But I love to read aloud. It's something that I really enjoy. And so that's could be too. You know, maybe if you don't like reading aloud, get audiobooks for your kids, but either listening to it with them or reading it to them. It sparks tons of great conversations, and I think it's so good for them on so many levels. And they can hear, you know, how you read it as an adult and the cadence and all of that. So love that. Love that aspect for Sonlight. Oh, did I even say we're doing level J? I don't think I even said that. I'm kind of all over the place today. I'm sorry. So we've had a busy few days. So anyway, those are some of the read alouds, which have been my favorite. And then the books that he has read. So he has like his readers that are kind of like for fun, I feel like, more. And then he has like his more like heavy duty, like there's like a textbook type book and stuff that takes a little bit longer. So the first kind of book that he read on his own that wasn't a read aloud is The Thief. And he said he enjoyed this book, that it was interesting, but that it was really slow. It took a really, really long time to kind of get going. And I think that the positive of having a book like that assigned to you, because there are certain books that are really slow, but then in the end get really good and are worth the read. So he thinks this was worth the read. It was still definitely way better than the Abraham Lincoln book, but it was kind of slow. But then this one was the next one he read, called Going Solo. And Roald Dahl, I think that's how you say his name. I love him. I mean, he wrote like Matilda, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Those are some of my... Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is one of my favorite books of all time as well. The BFG. So he has written a ton of like amazing books, but I had never read this one. I still haven't because Carter read. He said it was really good, and he said something about like he kind of lands. A life is made up of a great number of small incidents and a small number of great ones. Okay, that's a wonderful quote. I love that quote. I love quotes. That was such a good quote. But Carter, I was asking him about it today, and he said something about like how he like falls and might have gone blind, and like how he deals with that or something. So I don't know. It sounded like a really good read, a thoughtful read, and he said he really enjoyed it. So love that. Now, I think his personal reader, I don't know if that's what they call it, but that's just kind of what I call it, is considered Archimedes and the Door of Science. I'm pretty sure I read this aloud to him when we did a Good and Beautiful curriculum many years ago, maybe in like 4th or 5th grade. So, like one of their science curriculums, I think. But he doesn't remember it. It was so long ago, and honestly, I hardly remember it. But he said this is also really interesting. So, the level J is like a science, it's a history of science. I don't think I said that either. So, there's like some science type books. So this one is that he's currently reading out of, has been the whole 5 to 6 weeks we've been doing this. The Story of Science, Aristotle Leads the Way. This is more of a textbook like book. And then he's also been reading from close to the beginning, I think, of the curriculum, Truth and Transformation, a manifesto for ailing nations. Interesting. And then String, Straight Edge, and Shadow. So, the story of geometry recreates the atmosphere of ancient times using only 3 simple tools: the string, the straight edge, and the shadow. Men discovered the basic principles and constructions of elementary geometry more than 2,000 years ago. This engrossing book reveals how these discoveries were made and shows how they were related to the early civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece. How interesting. How interesting. So, I wish I could do this, honestly. I wish I had the time to read all of this, but I don't. I can just do the read alouds, and even that is hard to make time for. But, so those are some of the things he's reading right now. He really enjoys it. I don't think he feels like it's too much reading. It is a lot of reading. It's a lot. I would say at his age, every day there's a good amount of reading, and if you start to get behind, it can kind of pile up. So like, we're kind of like on the go a lot certain days. He's in physical therapy still twice a week, so we're kind of busy with some things still. I think next year I have plans for him to kind of keep his to put more structure into his day, and I think I don't know. I think I'm going to talk about that in my homeschool mom update video, which will probably be up before this, or maybe not. It might be up after this. But I'm going to do like an update video of just how things are going in the year and everything. So I'll talk about that in there, how I want to add some more structure to kind of make sure that we can get everything he needs to get done. But I think as far as a review goes, this is totally doable for someone who's in 8th grade. They just need, you know, a parent there to kind of make sure they're getting it done. So here is like, which I am going to do like a video with all the books that are in this curriculum and kind of show y'all some of the pages that you follow for Sonlight. Like you get this big old binder, or you don't have to buy it, but I do. And it has like all of the papers in it for the year. So, this week, or this might have been last week. He's supposed to check it off, but I think he forgets. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, there's certain things that we need to work on to get a better routine of. But this week, it was like each day we read, yeah, this was like last week. We read the Watsons Go to Birmingham together. Oh, and the Book of Nature poetry book. This has been amazing because not only does Carter enjoy this, but my 6-year-old also really enjoys this. And then even my 3-year-old likes the pictures because they're like real pictures. It's by National Geographic. I mean, look how beautiful. So it tells you like when to read the next poem or whatever, but I don't really follow it. I just kind of read the next one the next morning during our morning time, which I'm excited to make a video about because I feel like we've gotten a really good routine and really good structure with our morning time. So I want to share how we've achieved that. But, I mean, look how pretty. So, we just kind of read like a poem or two and we love it. We'll be like, oh, that was a good one, or oh, that one didn't make any sense. Like we'd have to like analyze that one or whatever. So I absolutely love this book and I think it's great for little ones as well. So that has been wonderful. Oh, the Bible reading. So the Bible reading is something that so I think it's good to encourage that you can adapt things to what works for your family. So for me, like, it could be hard for me to not check off every box, but we were starting off doing the Bible reading, and then what ended up making more sense is doing the Bible reading as a family with all of my kids in the morning time. Now, I might start adding in like at dinner where we read from the actual Bible. That's like my hope is to add that in. But right now, what we've been doing is actually reading the children's Bible, which I will share in my Sonlight video about the pre-K curriculum. So it's like their lowest level pre-K, but it's just a quick, you know, little short snippet of the story, certain stories in the Bible and meant for children, but we talk about it. I mean, it has questions. It has like insightful questions at the end. So I'll share that in that video. But we've just done that so that we can combine our Bible time as a family. And we also read, what is it called? Jesus Calling, for like a book one for teenagers and a book for kids. We'll read both of those in the morning. So that's kind of what we've done as our Bible time instead of their suggested Bible reading. And honestly, part of that also was what they would suggest us to read didn't make sense. The Bible is complicated, and I'm actually just joined a women's Bible study recently, which I'm loving because I want to understand more so that as a mom, I can disciple my kids and teach them. But I feel like just not knowledgeable enough. Like I feel knowledgeable enough for like my 6-year-old and under, you know, but for my 14-year-old to read the actual Bible, I feel like I need a little help. So I'm doing a Bible study, which has been amazing. But they would tell us to just read this little snippet of the Bible, and it just was like, okay. And I didn't really understand what it was about. And I mean, they have papers that can kind of explain some things, but they don't always talk that much about whatever book or Bible reading. You know, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So that was kind of a bummer to me. But I feel like we've adjusted it to what is best for us. Another thing I would say is right now he's just been reading. He hasn't really been also, because they have like little notes that you read afterwards, after you read the actual books, little like commentary or notes on it. And that just, we haven't been able to fit in And I just prefer him to kind of narrate to me what he read throughout the day from his books. So that's how we've been doing that as well. So Sonlight is a very big, all-encompassing, history, Bible, literature program. And he's also actually doing the language arts. So we've enjoyed that as well. But I think that one takes a lot of structure too, because there's some stuff for me, like dictation and things that I need to do with him, and spelling and stuff. And so I haven't loved that, and honestly am considering doing a different language arts, or at least incorporating different things for the next school year. But that will be in when I share his curriculum choices for his 9th grade year. But yeah, I would say as far as my review for the language arts, not the HBL, but the language arts, I don't know if I've loved it. But I don't think we've totally given it a chance. So we're going to try to keep going with it for the rest of this school year. But next school year, I'm going to give it like a month or so, and then I'm going to decide. So anyway, overall, we have loved it. It's so interesting. I wish I could read all of these books. Honestly, I do. Like this one, Pictures of Hollis Woods. I don't know if this is a read aloud or if he's supposed to read it on his own, but for whatever reason, this book just strikes me as something I want to read. So if it's not a read aloud, I might just read it to him, because it just, I don't know, it looks interesting to me. So lots of great books, very interesting curriculum. I do think that this is our first time ever using Sonlight. I think that it probably takes some adjusting, and with how crazy our year has been, I think that we've just kind of struggled to fully utilize the whole thing, including the language arts and everything. So I think though that as we get more into routine and just slowly build habits for our homeschool, because like I said, he was in public school at the beginning of the year, that I think things will get better. So I hope that can be an encouragement to you, because I know I would get really bogged down when I first started homeschooling Carter, and that's why I would kind of put him back in public school or do this or that, which I talk about in our homeschool journey, why I homeschool video. But I think I would just allow those stresses and those mistakes or things that aren't perfect to kind of bring me down. And I would encourage you not to do that. Just keep trying, keep building, keep doing your best, and eventually you will get there. And actually, I've been thinking about reviewing different curriculum we used when Carter was younger and talking about it, because I think some of that curriculum also discouraged me from homeschooling. And so I want to encourage moms, maybe I'll make a video, something like what to do when you feel like quitting homeschool or something, or why that is. So anyway, that's a side note. So what else did he do? As far as math, he has little Ben as well, just like Henry I shared in my kindergartners. My kindergartners is a lot more organized because I kind of handle it, and my 6-year-old, that's just more his personality. Carter is kind of just let his go crazy. We also need to, he hasn't even taken this out, and so that would allow room for other things. He does Wordly Wise. He's been doing Wordly Wise Book 8. This is great, just something they can do independently, work on their vocabulary. So I feel like a lot of people use Wordly Wise, and there's a reason. He also has done typing for the good and the beautiful, but we kind of fell off with that, honestly. It's been an interesting year. Okay, so I want to get him back into typing. I want him to finish this, because typing is an important skill. So that's something, though, that we like. It's good. He also did Analogies 1. He's been working through this. An introductory work text, problem-solving strategies, exercises for analysis, vocabulary study. This has been really interesting. If you have a kid who likes puzzles, like Carter plays chess, he's into that kind of thing, I think they would he's good at math, I think they would like this. So this has just been a little independent thing that I have him do that I like. And then as for math, we did teaching textbooks. And I know that some people love teaching textbooks, and some people are like, oh, it's not, it actually has a lot of holes in it, it's not that good. So I will share my insight. This is our first time ever using teaching textbooks, because I'm a big math person, so I'm kind of controlling. when it comes to math, and didn't want to do like an online math program because I want to have full control of their math learning. But because we were doing it in the middle of the year, because I have 3 young children, I just decided let's do an online one. And I know that teaching textbooks, while some people say it has holes in it, it's at least like simple and straightforward is what I understood of it before actually using it. So I had him start it when we got back from the hospital the first time, and he was so he had taken pre-algebra in 7th grade, and then he was taking algebra 1 in 8th grade, honors algebra 1, like he's very good at math. So I was considering, should I do pre-algebra? Should I do algebra 1? The great thing about teaching textbooks is they do let you try it out. They'll give you like a trial with like multiple lessons. So I decided to just do pre-algebra and have him try it out. And if he thought it was too easy, like way too easy and boring, then okay, clearly I've been talking too long because my memory card was full. But we fixed that. So where was I? I ended up saying, okay, let's just try out the pre-algebra because he had been through so much. I didn't want him to be attempting to get a full credit. Like when he does algebra 1, I want him to have a full year. Algebra is so important for future math courses, to have that really good foundation, and I didn't want him to feel like rushed or whatever because we were starting this program from the beginning, even though we were starting it a few months into the school year, if that makes sense. Now, of course, we can go into the summer or whatever, but I was just thinking, for how crazy his year had been and everything, it never hurts to re-review concepts, and as long as it's not like super boring for him, then he can do it. So we did the trial, which I was really appreciated that they had, and I asked him, do you think it's too easy? And he was like, no, I don't think it's too easy, whatever. So I was like, okay, we'll stick with the pre-algebra. And I'm glad that we did because I think it's going great. And he actually does 2 lessons a day, and it can take him a little bit of time, not that long. He's very strong in math. So that I'm glad we did pre-algebra since we are doing the 2 lessons a day. I'm just trying to keep his mind fresh when it comes to math. And a lot of people, some people take algebra 1 in 8th grade. It's like a high school credit. But some people wait until 9th grade to take algebra 1. And so since I knew that, I thought, well, there's no rush. He can just take algebra 1 in high school. Why rush it? It's such an important thing, So that's been going well. He's been doing 2 lessons, and honestly, I think it's really good so far. Like, I like how I'll kind of just listen. I don't really watch him doing it, but I'll listen, and I like how if he gets a problem wrong, he'll be like, I'll hear the guy talking, which is like, it's a guy's voice or whatever, and he sounds cool, I feel like interesting for kids. And he'll be like, not quite, or that's not right, or try again, and like kind of give some input. Make sure you reduce it or something. Give some input as to why they got it wrong. So I like that. Like, if you just flat out don't have the time to like sit with your kid and like do math with them, I think that teaching textbooks could be a really good option. Or if you're not very strong in math, you don't feel confident in math, whatever, I think teaching textbooks could be a really good option. Now, are we going to stick with it for next year? I'm not sure. So I will talk about that in his video for next year. I think we might do a couple curriculums. I don't know. So I'm not totally decided yet, but my overall review is that we have enjoyed it. I think it's kept his mind working. He likes to do math in his head, so he'll tell me how he figured out something that he was doing in his head, but he does write a lot of it down. He just kind of has scratch paper and he writes it down as well. So I don't know, overall I think it's pretty good. Like, if you want to just keep things simple in your homeschool, and all he needs for it, there's no textbooks or workbooks or anything, it's all online, and you just need like a notebook for your scratch piece of paper, basically. He has an A in it. So far I like it. Now, I don't want him to have any holes for algebra 1. That's important to me, so I want to look more into that as to why people feel that way. Maybe watch some homeschool mom videos about that. Look into it myself before deciding what we want to do for next year. But I think even if we do continue teaching textbooks, which is a possibility for algebra 1, I think we will combine it with another curriculum. which may sound crazy, but I feel like I mention her a lot, but she's like one of my favorites. Rachel from 7 and All. She talks about like some of her sisters that are in like 7th grade or whatever, and they have like multiple math curriculum that they use. So I won't be alone in having him do that. I think just depending on the subjects, you know, you may, as a homeschool mom, you may be more passionate about certain subjects than others, and so you may be a little overzealous. But I don't want to be too overzealous. Like, I don't want to be too crazy to where I burn him out and I burn myself out, because I've done that in the past, and I'll talk about that in my regrets video, or like, if you feel like quitting, you know, here's maybe why and what you can do to prevent yourself from quitting, all of that. But anyway, overall, we really liked teaching textbooks, especially if you're homeschooling during a crisis or when you're super busy or you're moving or whatever it is. I think it would be a perfect curriculum for that. Okay, I think that's about everything that he did this year. Like I said, you know, it was a very weird year. Started in the middle of the year, but all of the curriculum that we kind of threw in, I feel like was perfect for doing something like that. So if that's something that you need to do, I think any of this curriculum I talked about would work for that. So this video is probably way too long, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some inspiration from it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. That really does support my channel. It just gets my videos out, tells YouTube that people are liking what they're seeing. And definitely subscribe and click the bell to be notified when I post new videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.